Hello guys, and welcome back to the second video of my Learning Tanks series, Setting Up for Success. Within this video, I'll be giving you a rundown of all the settings within World of Tanks with explanations to each and every one of them. Just like in any other game, these settings can make or break your game, giving you more visibility and information when playing, while removing distractions and inconveniences. I will give you an idea of which settings are important and why. I'll also explain to you what the impact on your game will be by showing you clips, as well as tell you why you should or shouldn't use these settings based on examples. Of course, these samples won't cover all cases, but they will give you a decent understanding of why you would change these settings or not. But first things first, to get into the settings menu, you either click on the cogwheel in the top left corner of your garage, or hit escape on your keyboard. Then click on the settings tab and you're already there. To make things easier, during the video, I'll highlight the option we're talking about in either red for being an important setting that I would recommend you to change to the specific mentioned in the video, yellow, which will be mostly your choice, where you will need to decide on your personal preference between minor gains in either graphics or performance, for example, and the green, which are gimmicks or just irrelevant options that won't make a difference in your gameplay. I will cover all 7 tabs of the settings and link each of them in the description of the video, as well as each option itself, so you can find whatever you need quickly. But let's start with the general settings. The first area, chat, doesn't contain many useful battle settings, though it will cover your privacy in case you don't like seeing insults, getting invites, or getting messages from people other than your friends. In case you're not seeing invites from people you want to play with that are not on your friend list, this option will help you out with that. Right below that, we will find the battle communications part. These contain all your settings covering pings on the map, as well as being able to ping allies, getting pinged by allies, though in general, they are a very useful tool when playing in platoons or in clan wars. But let's move on to our first important section, the battle interface, which will cover the whole right side of the general tab down to the very bottom of it. Sadly enough, the first option within this tab is a gimmick. The 4 dog tag options are purely cosmetic, meaning you can turn them off or on to your own desire. They will show you the dog tag of your enemy that killed you, that you've destroyed, and so on. Moving on to our first important setting, disabling the optics effect in sniper mode, which is recommended, considering it puts a filter and scratches over your whole screen when using the sniper zoom, which can be distracting, though if you really like the aesthetic, it wouldn't be a crucial mistake to leave it on. The postmortem mode, being the most recent addition as of making this video, gives us a death cam, which gives us the ability to see how we died, where the enemy hit us, how much damage he caused, and much more. I personally recommend turning this to the detailed report, as it can give you a decent understanding of how you died, give you more information on your mistake and how to fix it in the future. The dynamic camera should be disabled. This setting will cause a camera within sniper zoom to jump up and down when firing, to simulate recoil, which is extremely annoying when playing an autoloader, as well as rocking your camera whenever you hit a tree or an object in the open world. This is also really annoying and will disturb your gameplay. Within the next 3 options, all of these should be turned on. Smooth camera zoom adds a smoothing animation between zoom stages, making things less jarring. The tactical view as well as the commander camera are not obvious at first, but each of these options will add an extra level of zooming out, making it much easier to see where an enemy is looking or which direction his tank is facing. In this case, we couldn't see the enemy by using our standard zoom. With the tactical view, however, we are able to see that the enemy isn't looking at us, giving us the ability to shoot him without danger to ourselves. The next up might be one of the most annoying features within World of Tanks if not enabled. The option horizontal stabilization in sniper mode needs to be turned on, considering it lets you keep your crosshair pointed in the direction you mean to whenever you are turning your hull in sniper zoom. Otherwise, your camera would be turning with the hull, throwing off your aim completely. In both of these examples, I was not using my mouse at all. The enabling 16 and 25 times zooms can be a double-edged sword. It does make taking shots at longer ranges or even medium ranges much easier due to it making you less shaky. On the other hand, it does make you more prone to tunnel vision, losing your awareness of what is going on around you. Restricting your sniper mode to the shift key removes your ability to change from normal view to sniper mode by scrolling into it. Depending on your preference, you can turn it off or on. I personally keep it off due to me sometimes scrolling into the sniper mode anyways. Next up, one of the most important features to help tank destroyers. The enable automatic hull lock should always be disabled. If not, it will lock the hull movement as well as your camera to the gun angle of the tank, meaning you won't be able to turn your camera farther to the right or left when you've reached the maximum, being forced to either leave sniper mode or have to turn your hull by the use of WASD, throwing off your aim completely. It will also lock your mouse to the tank's angle, similar to a disabled horizontal stabilization setting. Enabling the server reticle is very useful to see any difference between your aim and where the server thinks you're aiming, as there might be a difference due to lag. With this setting, it's much easier to see a mismatch. Scrolling down the list, the first big option we will find are the battle types. Here you can change the battle modes you want to play, where standard battles are your regular 15 versus 15 battles, with each team having their own base to defend and capture, while encounter battles being 15 versus 15 battles with both teams competing for a neutral base in the middle of a map. Assault battles are also 15 versus 15, but there is only one base belonging to the defenders. While they need to defend it, the other team will try to capture it. Grand battles are 30 versus 30 standard battles, on very few but big maps. I personally keep these off due to them not being more fun, but just more chaotic. The last option here is maps under development. These add random events to normal maps, like the airship crashing on Himmelsdorf, which creates new paths and cover. Be aware that these events happen at random and are only available to a very few maps in the game. Another thing to keep in mind is that map bans only apply to standard maps. You can end up, for example, on Ensk in an encounter game mode even if you have Ensk banned in standards. Below the battle types, we'll see the vehicle panel options. These will change the amount of rows in your garage, as well as the size of the tank icons. Change these to your own liking. Up next are the camouflage settings. Depending on your choice, you will only see the camouflages and skins according to the tags mentioned in the option. You will always see the camouflage on your own tanks, you cannot disable those. Over in the battle interface settings again, we can see the preferred zoom level option, which is based on your personal preference. It simply puts you either in the zoom level which you've selected here, or in the last one you were zooming in. Try it out and use what works best for yourself. The Show Vehicle Markers on Battle Score option sounds bigger than it really is. It simply shows the tank icons below the team score. You should simply turn it on as it gives you more information of your tanks that are still alive. Why this setting is here and not in the Battle Score tab is beyond me though. Another important setting will be the display of notification when not causing damage. This will pop up additional information to why you didn't cause damage, be it by not penetrating, not hitting the armor, or only causing a critical hit or bouncing off the armor. This will let you know what you did wrong. Another useful option is the display of a speedometer for wheeled vehicles. Keep in mind, this only applies for the French wheeled tanks, as they are the only tanks that are able to use this mechanic. It will display a speedometer which shows you the speed and which mode you're in. Another crucial setting is called Show the Repair Time for Damaged Modules. This will show you the time required to repair a broken module. This is very useful to see if you are required to use a repair kit in a situation. For example, the enemy reloads for 12 seconds while you repair in 6 seconds. You don't need to panic, but just let the truck repair itself and drive away. A rather gimmicky setting is the ability to show previous battle results in chat. You will get a pop-up during a battle whenever a previous battle ends, showing you some information about it, if for example it was a win and how much credits and experience you've earned. Next up is another important feature. This feature allows you to see the HP of a vehicle in the team panels to the left and right of your screen. This can give you crucial information on if an enemy is low HP or not, though a heads up, the amount displayed is only updated when the target is actually spotted and within your render range. Otherwise it will display the previous HP or a full HP tank in case you haven't spotted them. This feature also exists for the minimap, where you will be able to see circles around tanks representing their HP pool, giving you an overview of how things are going on each flank. I would recommend to enable this feature only when pressing Alt to see whenever you need it, otherwise it will overflow your map constantly. Another extremely important feature are the expanded minimap features. These must be set to always on. This setting will display the names, positions, and last known positions of vehicles on the minimap. Otherwise, you'd only see tank icons with no further information or none at all. For example, you could not distinguish between a mouse or a KV4 on the minimap, as well as not being able to tell where that pesky Leopard 1 was spotted a minute ago. Another useful feature are the tips on the loading screen. They should be set to minimap, due to it displaying a minimap during the loading screen, giving you a heads up on which side of the map you're about to spawn in on. This way you can plan ahead. Next up are the beginner tips. These are pretty much irrelevant. If you're a new player, these will disable themselves by default once you've left the beginner state. For those who have them off by default, you shouldn't need them anymore. The next setting allows you to switch your loadout during the loading screen. It can be very useful if you have a slow computer that takes longer to load. If you don't have that problem, simply keep it disabled. Way down at the bottom of the general settings, you can find one of the most important settings when it comes to analyzing yourself, the replays. Put this setting to all, this way every single battle will create a replay file within your replays folder. Replays are extremely useful when trying to improve. They're great for analyzing your plays and mistakes, and to improve on them in the future. Plus, they're really small in size, meaning you don't have to worry about space on your computer. The setting named Displaying Marks of Excellence does exactly what it says it does, though it will not only disable them for yourself, but your teammates or enemies will no longer be able to see your marks either. The option Displaying your platoon's vehicles in the garage is also a gimmick. Though it may look cool, it may also look weird on smaller displays. Checking the option to display the server selection when starting the game is totally up to you. You can turn it on when you want to join a specific server every day, while disabling will put you on a random server. Another feature is the anonymizer within the game. This will give you a random username during the battle for all others to see except your platoon mates. It will basically hide your stats until the battle has ended. Returning to the biggest tool in our inventory again, the minimap. Disabling any transparency is a must, due to it possibly obscuring things on a minimap. Playing without these other features enabled would give you no concrete information to work with. You cannot estimate ranges quickly or accurately enough. By enabling these features, you will be able to work way better with your minimap. You'll be able to see which areas your view range covers and estimate ranges more easily. As a quick rundown of what these circles are, the small blue one will represent your proxy view range. The bigger green one will display your actual view range that your tank currently has. The white one will display the absolute maximum range at which an enemy can be spotted by yourself. And the yellow one shows the render range in which you will see enemies that are detected by your allies. Closing out the general settings part with a purely cosmetic option, which will turn your camera on your tank whenever you're inactive in the garage. So let's move over to the graphics part of the settings. In the top right corner, you will find the 3D resolution slider. This one should always be set to 100% and dynamic adjustment should be disabled. Anything but these settings may cause fuzzy edges or screen tearing. Next up are your basic resolution settings. Simply adjust them according to your monitor. Vertical synchronization can be useful to keep a more consistent frame rate, while the colorblind mode can be useful if you suffer from a red-green color blindness or if you simply like the aesthetic of replacing red names with bluish-purple ones. The field of view slider is a very important and powerful setting. It allows you to increase the angle that your camera covers, increasing the overview of the battlefield due to more information being on your screen. The dynamic setting should always be disabled, due to it changing your FOV based on what you are doing. For example, it will change when firing to make it look more immersive, while in reality it just causes unnecessary movement and distractions. The color adjustment tab is exactly for what it says it does. You're able to change your colors to something more vibrant or less vibrant, or put a pre-made color filter on it to make it more appealing to you. I keep it into intense colors with high contrast to see details and edges a bit better. So let's move over to the Details tab. Within the Details tab, there are some settings which are highly recommended to change to give you a competitive edge at no cost. Some other settings are not mandatory but may give you a small edge, but at the cost of visuals. In the top left corner, you will be able to change the client's main graphics between the standard and the HD clients. The difference between these two is mainly game performance. If your game doesn't run smoothly over 60 FPS, you should consider using the standard client, or if you don't like any fancy graphics. Within the main part of the options, you will find the overall graphics settings. They influence the overall quality of textures and so on. These should be your first changes if you're unable to run the game smoothly on those 60 FPS mentioned earlier. The lighting and post-processing options are more noticeable when it comes to how much they affect the graphics quality of your game, though they will also improve your frame rate the lower they are. They might give you a very low competitive edge, but you need to be comfortable with how the game looks while having a high frame rate. The first mandatory change is to turn off the motion blur effect. As the name already says, it will blur your screen when you turn your camera on, making things much harder to see. Therefore, you'll enhance your visibility within the game, making visuals much clearer. Scrolling down the list, we'll find more graphics quality options. The water and terrain options have a big impact on your frame rate, so turning these down to increase your frame rate is key. The terrain tessellation settings should be turned off. They will leave 3D track marks in the terrain, which might look good but will affect your frame rate greatly. Extra effects overall should be turned to medium. While a lot of the ambience will go out the window, the visibility gets much more clearer. There's less dust or other unnecessary clutter on your screen, while the limited effects can reveal positions if the enemy runs over explosive barrels, for example. The extra effects in the sniper mode should be set to off, as this once again reduces unnecessary clutter, for example the muzzle flash when firing. This will make aiming much more consistent and easy. The track physics are very much a personal preference thing, as they very rarely come into contact with our aiming or being in our way, though they can affect the frame rate. The vegetation quality doesn't matter too much, apart from the frame rate. Adjust the setting to your liking. All bushes will stay the same size and shape. Adjust this while keeping your frame rate in check. The grass density should be turned off all the time, as it is unnecessary clutter, but it also may cause confusion of high grass looking like a bush without giving you the benefit of a bush but rather nothing. Foliage transparency seems counterintuitive at first. Having the setting turned on will cause the bush to be transparent when within 15 meters at its sniper mode, while turning it off, on the other hand, will cause the bush to fully turn invisible, enhancing your visibility by removing some half-transparent bushes from your screen. Turning off grass in sniper mode should be without saying. This will remove all the grass while you are within a sniper mode. If you were to keep the setting on, you will have annoying grass on hills and mounds which are trying to play behind, making aiming much more difficult. The enhanced destruction physics should always be disabled. While they might look really cool and fancy, they will cause your frame rate to be extremely inconsistent, as well as causing problems like fences being stuck in your gun, which in turn will block your vision when trying to aim. The last option is to choose to enable track effects like dirt being flung off your tracks and wheels, as well as them leaving marks on the ground, which unlike terrain tessellation effects, won't affect your frame rate, meaning you can choose this to your own liking. Let's move over to the sound options. The master volume controls the overall volume of the game and all subcategories of sound. It can be found in the top right corner. On the left, you will be able to find these subsettings. Adjust them to your liking. I do recommend keeping interface, voice notifications, and effects on due to these giving you important information during a battle. In case you might have no sound, there's the option to enable sound at the very top left in this box, which might be a fix to your problems. On the right, you're able to change preset settings, which should have the best use depending on the sound system you use. Try them out and use what you think sounds the best. The last part in this area is the ability to change the sound effects of Sixth Sense and the sound detection perk, as well as changing the crew voice to either be the standard language of your client, like English, German, or Polish, or that of the commander of the vehicle, be it a special one like Ikibu, or based on the nationality of the tank. The voice chat options are basically irrelevant. I personally have it disabled as there are practically no uses for it, as you will be using another communication software like Discord or TeamSpeak, for example, when playing with your friends. Moving on over to the control settings of WoT of Tanks. Bind these settings to what you are most comfortable with. Though there are some settings that might not be bound by default, bind these settings to something within reach that is comfortable to use. The setting Stop and Fire should be unbound, considering it's a relic of old days before the handbrake. Talking of the handbrake, if it isn't bound to any key by default, bind it. This will give you the ability to drastically shorten your turns by drifting. Reload shell container should be bound to something that is in reach as well, as it gives autoloaders the ability to reload their clip without having to fire off the remaining ammunition. Consumables should also be bound to comfortable keys that you can easily reach. Indicate position, or in other words pinging, should be bound as well, to enable precise communication with your teammates. Fire a salvo, or rather firing a double shot, can also be bound to avoid accidentally firing a single gun when preparing a double shot. Over on the right, we will find our mouse sensitivity options. These are very much up to your own preference, but must be set to a point where you are comfortable and accurate using these sensitivities. You should keep your sniper aim sensitivity below your arcade aim sensitivity, as lower sensitivity will make you more accurate using the sniper scope. You should keep experimenting with your sensitivity and keep refining it until you feel comfortable using it. And remember, your sensitivity is individual. Simply by copying it from a streamer doesn't mean you will be more accurate afterwards. Moving over to the reticle options of the game, these include your crosshair, your tank's aiming circle, as well as additional features which you can see on the screen. Generally speaking, these settings are personal preference, with a few exceptions. Under the setting Gun Marker, you will always want to choose an aim point which includes Armor Penetration Indicator, as this feature will give you a good understanding of your chances to penetrate a spot by just aiming at it, where green indicates a high chance to penetrate and red indicates basically no chance. But be aware, this marker only shows the chance for the exact spot over which it hovers. Hovering 5 cm over to the left could be an impenetrable area. Within the sniper settings, you should repeat the same principle. Set up the way you feel most comfortable while choosing an aim point with an armor penetration indicator. Moving on to the artillery reticle, you should have these options enabled as they will give you the most information about your current aim, if you're able to hit the target in the first place, and where you are aiming shown on the minimap. Under the camera controls, you will find an alternative mode which changes left, up, right, down in relation to your tank rather than the camera. Moving on to the outlining parts of the reticle setting, which is one of the more crucial parts in the settings menus. Changing the settings from standard to simplified is mandatory. This will show the exact hitbox of the tank you are looking at, meaning you'll only see an outline around the things you can actually hit. In comparison, while using the standard settings shows you an outline around everything on the tank, including items that you're not able to hit, like the machine guns and the track guards on this TVP. If you were to shoot these, you would not hit the tank, but you would basically be shooting nothing. Another important option is the obstacle rendering. This option, when disabled, will simply show the outline of a tank regardless of there being an obstacle in the way or not. Turning these settings on will fill penetrable and impenetrable areas with either a solid color or a texture. I recommend using one fill and one texture setting and remembering the look of the corresponding textures. This way you'll be able to see if an enemy is sitting behind a wall that you can shoot through or behind solid cover. Moving over to the Markers tab, you will be able to change the markers above enemy, friendly, or destroyed vehicles on the battlefield. You can customize them to your own preference with 3 exceptions in mind. These 3 options are mandatory to be turned on, and these are the vehicle model, the health indicator, and turning the vehicle health drop-down menu to HP left/total. These settings will show you the name of the tank you are fighting, in this example the Tiger, and it will show you the health bar over the vehicle with its current amount of HP remaining out of the total. This way you can easily tell if an enemy is within one-shot range of your gun. Down below you will find these options again, but these will only show up upon pressing Alt on your keyboard. I have these settings turned on to a minimum, as I use it to gain a bit of an overview in case there are multiple tanks on a single spot. Customizing these options for your team is also very useful. This way you can tell which tanks are around you and who has how much HP remaining. This makes decision making much easier. Customizing these options for destroyed tanks can also be useful, as you want to keep them off your screen to not clutter it, but you don't want to run into them when they're, for example, sitting in a bush. Moving over to our last main tab, the battle notifications. Depending on the install of your game, you might find the standard settings. These give us very little information. They give us a rough direction of where we've been shot from and if it penetrated us, and nothing more. Basically, never use this option and always go for the advanced options. When using the advanced settings, you can tick all the checkboxes down below except for the dynamic indicators one. These settings will allow you to see all of the necessary information you need. You'll see which tank shot you, what happened to you, and how much damage you took, all within one marker. And you'll be able to use the white line below it to return fire to unspotted enemies. Up top we once again have 4 sub-tabs to go through, so let's move on to the Battle Events tab. The Battle Events tab should always be enabled, with all of the sub-options being enabled as well. This will give you a live feed of what you are doing and what is happening. Sometimes it might give you information that you would miss otherwise, like scoring multiple critical hits on a vehicle or spotting an enemy outside of your field of view. Within the tab called Logs, you will find the damage done and damage taken log. Enabling all log events at the top will give you a total tracker within the battle at the bottom left. This will track all of the damage you've done throughout the entire battle, but it will not include any damage to unspotted vehicles. The detailed damage option should be set to display always, and the event type should be set to all events. The position of events should be set to received damage at the top. This option is rather important as it will split the damage done and damage taken logs apart. While the damage done log isn't as important, the damage taken log is very important due to the log showing you the type of ammunition fired at you. You can adapt your position accordingly when the enemy is firing heat, for example. Within the map border tab, we can find options about, well, the map border. Here you can change the type of map border from a solid wall to a striped wall. Turning off the map border is obviously not a good decision, as it will cause confusion where the map ends. Coming to our last tab within the settings, the Battle Report and Missions tab. This tab gives you options on which features to turn on or off within the team scores. Having the total HP bar for both teams enabled gives us a rough understanding on how each team is faring. The total team HP can additionally be displayed as a number, making it more defined on how much HP is still in play for each team. Displaying the HP difference as a number is a great way to tell how far ahead or behind your team is compared to the enemy team. Displaying vehicles by tier can be useful, but might get confusing in games with 3 different tiers and multiple classes per tier. Displaying our missions and the mission progress at the top should be disabled, due to it having the ability to cause you to overextend or make bad plays because you're really close to finishing a mission, therefore throwing the battle and your mission progress by doing this. And with that, we've gone through like 23 minutes of World of Tanks settings. I really hope you could pick up some new things which will bring your gameplay to the next level. In case you have any questions, drop them in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button and subscribe, and I'll be uploading more videos, guides, and tutorials similar to this one. With that, I would like to thank you for watching, and take care.